All right, let's jump right in. Whenever you hear about a military conflict, it's easy to think of it as something happening, well, over there. But the truth is the consequences ripple out way beyond the front lines. And today, we're looking at exactly that, how the escalating conflict with Iran is creating whole new battlefields, not just in the desert, but in our hospitals, in our economy, and yeah, in our digital lives too.
And this quote really just hits it right on the head. Errol Weiss from the Health Information Sharing and Analysis Center says a major cyber incident isn't just an IT problem, it's a patient safety issue that can slow emergency care. I mean, let that sink in. This isn't some abstract problem for the IT department. This is about an emergency room, maybe your local emergency room, suddenly not being able to function when it matters most.
And that's exactly why this isn't just some distant news story. We're talking about a war thousands of miles away that's opening up brand new front lines. And believe it or not, one of those front lines could run right through your town, through your local hospital or your bank. All of a sudden, this conflict isn't just over there anymore, is it?
So okay, how in the world did we get here so fast? Let's rewind a bit and look at the epicenter, at those first few military moves that really lit the fuse on this whole thing. Man, those first 96 hours were just a whirlwind. It kicked off with the U.S. and Israel launching a series of strikes they called Operation Epic Fury. And this was a massive deal because it led to the death of Iran's supreme leader, Ayatollah Khamenei. Of course, Iran's response was incredibly swift and absolutely brutal. They launched Operation True Promise 4, and it caused, well, unprecedented damage to the U.S. Navy's Fifth Fleet in Bahrain. Just like that, the physical battlefield had exploded.
But here's the thing. Almost at the same time, the first ripple of this conflict started to spread in a totally different direction. A second front opened up. This is when the fighting went digital. So this is what experts call hybrid warfare. And if you're not familiar with the term, it's basically a strategy where, yeah, you still have the tanks and the jets, but they're only one part of the equation. The rest of the fight, it's happening with keyboards and code, all aimed at causing as much digital disruption as possible. It's this messy, tangled, multi-layered way of fighting a war.
And the arsenal of digital weapons they're using is, well, it's pretty scary. We're talking about everything from those massive DDoS attacks that are just designed to crash websites and sow chaos, all the way to ransomware that can lock up the computer systems of critical services. And then there's this really nasty stuff called wiper malware. It doesn't even want your money. Its only job is to destroy data, period. It's a full-spectrum digital assault, for sure.
But here's a really chilling warning from Adam Myers over at CrowdStrike. He says that these initial cyber skirmishes, the website takeovers, the low-level stuff, they're often just a warm-up act. It's like they're testing the fences, right? Seeing what the defenses are like before they launch much, much more aggressive attacks. And what that means is the worst could still be on its way.
So if the worst is yet to come, where are these bigger attacks likely to hit? Well, intelligence points to a really clear shift. Attackers are moving away from just military targets and are now aiming squarely at civilian ones. And that's created this new, incredibly vulnerable frontline. And guess what's right at the top of their target list? Our healthcare system.
Okay, but why healthcare? Why hospitals? Well, if you think like an attacker, it's kind of the perfect target. First, you've got life and death situations. That creates the maximum amount of pressure possible. Any disruption has immediate, very human consequences, which then creates political fallout. Plus, let's be honest, hospitals have historically been underfunded when it comes to cybersecurity, and to top it all off, they're sitting on a treasure trove of our most sensitive, private data. It's really a recipe for chaos.
And look, this is not just some what-if scenario. We're already seeing it happen. A hacker group linked to Iran has already claimed responsibility for an attack on Khalid, which is Israel's largest healthcare network. So the digital frontline, it has already reached the hospital door.
But the shockwave from all this doesn't just stop at the hospital. The next front line is economic. And this is where the conflict starts to hit a lot closer to home. I'm talking about your wallet.
Right now, it feels like the entire global economy is just holding its breath, all because of one specific place on the map, the Strait of Hormuz. It is one of the most critical choke points for the world's energy supply, and it's sitting right in the middle of this powder keg.
And to really get why this is such a big deal, you just have to look at the numbers. Something like 15% of the world's entire oil supply flows through this one, single, narrow waterway. 15%.
And it's not just oil, either. We're also talking about nearly 20% of the world's liquefied natural gas, or LNG. So you've got this double threat to global energy stability. It puts everything from the price of gas for your car to the cost of heating your home completely at risk.
So what does all this actually mean for the price you pay at the pump? Well, before this all kicked off, a barrel of crude oil was trading at about $73, but analysts are warning that any major disruption in that strait could easily send prices skyrocketing to well over $100 a barrel, and you would feel that impact everywhere, not just at the gas station, but in your grocery bills, the cost of goods, pretty much everything.
So, when you step back and look at the whole picture, you've got the military strikes, the cyber attacks on hospitals, the economic warfare, you start to realize we are looking at a fundamentally new kind of conflict. We really have to get our heads around the new rules of war in the 21st century.
I mean, this is the shift right here. Think about it. Traditional warfare was fought with tanks and jets and soldiers on these clearly defined physical front lines. But modern hybrid warfare? It's fought with lines of code that shut down hospitals. It's fought with supply chain disruptions that choke the global economy. The battlefields now are digital, and the combatants can be anywhere in the world, sitting behind a keyboard.
And all of this really leads us to the one critical question that we all have to face. As these conflicts continue to blur the lines between the physical and the digital, just how prepared are we for the fallout? Because in this new era of warfare, the front line isn't somewhere else. The front line is everywhere.